the Mission Dorothy podcast with your hostess, Tamekis Williams. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us here at Mission Dorothy, the podcast. I know, y'all. It has been a minute since I have recorded an episode. And I do want to apologize to that for that, but on the flip side, life happens, right? Life has been so busy for me from, throughout the holidays and that first month of this 2020. And life was just kind of all over the place for me, y'all. I was just trying to push through, make some things happen, settle some things down. And guess what? Your girl came out with a sound mind, a solid heart, and excited about moving forward in this year. Even though January was not my best year, I made it through it and I plan to still move forward and push forward, right? Not going to allow the enemy to take my joy, not going to sit back and roll around in any life issues. Your girl had to make some stuff happen and life has settled down, and so I am back. I hope that you guys have had a fantastic start of the new year. If not, I've been hearing a lot of people say that 2019 has carried over into 2020. But guess what? You can make a conscious choice to end that, right? At, every second every second gives us another opportunity to change, right? Change your thoughts, you change your behaviors, and you can change your life, right? So if 2020 has started off rough, understand we're in month 2. You still have a lot of time to get it together. So keep on pushing, keep pushing through. Understand that negativity, hurt, pain, loss, all of that is temporary, and you do have everything you need within in order to push forward and change the quality of your life, right? And so I hope that you guys have set your goals for the year. And if you are not a goal setter, a long time goal setter, then at least I hope that you have some short term goals in place. Please understand that sometimes it takes time to accomplish our goals. So it's quality, not quantity, right? So just make sure that your goals are realistic so that you are not setting yourself up for failure, right? That's in goals as well as expectations in relationships, right? Because in relationships, we can set unrealistic expectations there, and we think that people should know how to do, how to act, how to talk, how to love, how to be. But on the flip side, do they really have the tools to meet the expectation? And if they don't have the tools, you will be forever let down. How about that? So, today we are going to discuss jealousy. Yes, that old J word, right? Jealousy. And I want us to remember that we are always connecting the correlation between, self-esteem and our topic, right? Self-esteem, living authentically, and the topic. And so we will be looking at how jealousy can play a part in low self-esteem, but also jealousy can be a part of your life even if you do have strong self esteem. So let's dive in. I will be pulling from Nathaniel Brendan's A Woman's Self Esteem. Um, as we go throughout the episode, I'll be pulling from his book. All right. And so I tell you, this little book is so powerful. It's so chock full of goodness. So let's dive in. So oftentimes we wonder whether jealousy is always an indication of poor self esteem or whether high self esteem people ever experience this painful emotion. The short answer is that more often than not, jealousy is a reflection of inadequate self esteem, but not always or necessarily. There are consequences in which jealousy can be felt by women and men who are relatively free of self doubt. So let's talk about passionate love, romantic love. It entails a desire for sexual exclusivity. Consequently, some degree of pain follows the loss that exclusivity, as as when one partner has a sexual encounter with someone else outside of the relationship, right? So if one wants to call that pain of infidelity jealousy, then it's normal, right? It would be normal to say that, you know, the jealousy can pull from your self-esteem of, right? So the person who is the sufferer, their self-esteem will be affected by infidelity, but it all depends on how deep that effect goes, right? How negative will it um, be when it comes to your self-esteem? So the issue here is that we have to be mindful of how we allow jealousy to reduce self-worth, right? So the sufferer, right, the person who the infidelity was done against, right, would definitely be devastated when it comes to their self-worth. So most of the time, well, all the time, right, all the time, when I sit with couples, and I always make it a point to ask the person who the infidelity was done against, right? So that's the sufferer. I always ask them, how did the infidelity make you feel as a woman or as a man, right? How did the infidelity affect your sense of self? And every time they always discuss how it makes them feel less attractive or less pretty, or they feel that they're no longer wanted or that something is wrong with them. And so that infidelity dives right into their self-worth first, right? And the thing about that is, it really hurts when you think that you are enough for a person and they feel that they can go out and be with someone else, you know, in secrecy or not, right? Or not, because there's some bold ones out there, but in secrecy. And then when their mate finds out, oftentimes the responsibility of the infidelity is pointed at the sufferer, right? Well, you wasn't giving me time. Well, you wasn't giving me sex. Well, you made me feel like you wasn't attracted attracted to me anymore. This is, you know, what usually happens. You do have some of the um the person who committed the infidelity will sometimes take on the responsibility, but the finger is often pointed at the person, at the sufferer, right? But at what they were not doing that led the other person out to cheat. And so, if, however, the sufferer felt not merely pain but devastated self worth, then I would say that she or he had a self esteem problem and that it existed prior to the infidelity. So, what he is saying here is that if your self esteem is in check, right? If you have a strong sense of self worth and your mate go out and cheat on you, then will you be hurt? Yes, because you, especially if you love this person and you guys have been together for a while, and you will be hurt, but will it really chop at your self esteem? And for those who have a pretty good level of self esteem, it may not, right? Because you understand that you may focus more on self-assessing and trying to see were there things that you wasn't doing that could have possibly contributed to the infidelity, but it wouldn't necessarily pierce your self-worth and your self-esteem because you recognize your value in the relationship, right? And so your pain just kind of may be a little surface. It may penetrate just a little bit. But for the person who already had self doubts, low self worth, low self esteem before the infidelity even happened, then they are going to be devastated. Their self worth is going to be devastated. And the little self esteem or self worth that they had can possibly be diminished, right? So you end up being reduced to zero, right? The thing about it too is that for the person who may not have strong self-esteem, um, it can often erase or deduct from how you view yourself, right? And so if we were to look at an example, Jane, right? So Jane says, if he could betray me by sleeping with her, then what value do I have? He's reduced my self esteem to zero, right? So the problem was not that Jane felt pain in the circumstances that was normal. The problem lied in the conclusion that she drew about herself. So even though he committed the act, Jane decided that his act spoke directly to her self worth. This is a conclusion that she drew, right? Because Jane's self esteem was already low. So, because he cheated, he has reduced my self esteem to zero. And now she's questioning her worth. No person whose self esteem is solid in the first place imagines that another person over whose actions one has no control can destroy it, right? When your self esteem is in check, you already understand that you do not control the actions of your mate, right? You can't control the actions of your mate. The only person's actions we are responsible for are our own. No one else's behavior can be a reflection on our worth if we do not sanction or support that behavior. That was the lesson Jane needed to learn. Jane had to learn that because he cheated, it had nothing to do with her self worth. She assigned the infidelity to her self worth. Instead, she needed to learn that she cannot control her mate's actions Therefore, she should not be connecting their actions to her self esteem. Jealousy generally involves anxiety, feelings of feelings of being threatened, pain, fantasies of rejection or abandonment, and often rage in response to our partner's real or imagined involvement with another, right? Real or imagined. So let's think about that for a minute. Let's keep it real, real. Now, for insecure individuals, that imagined piece is key because it is so easy for people to start believing their assumptions, right? Once you continue to ruminate on it and replay what you think may be happening because you may have saw your mate talking to someone else, and you know you start running with, what are they talking about? Are they talking about me? Is she trying to push up on him? Is he trying to push up on her? Like that imagination can definitely cause some issues in a person who has low self-esteem, right? So then people will create this whole jealousy piece, and jealousy shows up in the relationship all the time, right? Because this person has romanced their thoughts, and one can really believe that infidelity is happening when it's actually not at all, right? Simply because you have, you know, this imagination that is feeding on the jealousy or the fear of jealousy, right? So now your mate can't go anywhere, can't talk to anybody, got to get rid of all the female friends, all the male friends. You want to know where they doing, who you talking to, who you going with, who's going to be there, all of these questions. And the sad part about it is you can ask all the questions, and if they answer them all, you're going to still sit and feel insecure. That jealousy is a fool. I'm telling you, it ruins a lot of relationships when there is no jealousy. I mean, no infidelity, no cheating at all. But when a person is jealous, they can really start to believe the mind tricks that your mental can play. So some people feel jealousy because they experience deep self doubt and live with the constant anticipation of rejection and abandonment. But there are a number of other situations besides infidelity that can provoke jealousy in people, both with and without self confidence. And before we go to that, let me go back and really speak on the constant anticipation of rejection and abandonment. So, if we were to talk about past relationships, whether it was your father, whether it was, other romantic relationships, friendships, and if you just have a history of abandonment and rejection, then we do know, y'all do understand that that can show up in your relationships, right? And so that's why it's so important to do the work and to really be conscious so that you can catch or pay attention when you have a history of your mates telling you that you have issues with jealousy, or you have issues with abandonment, or there seems to be some sort of fear of rejection, right? When you have, when you're paying attention and you recognize that, if you didn't get that promotion on the job, or you were going after someone and just trying to get to know them, hopefully date and get into a relationship, and it doesn't work out, or you have a friendship, or trying to cultivate a friendship, and it seems like that person is just not that into you. There are different situations and scenarios that we can discuss that can bring up rejection and abandonment issues. And so in that, like it says, some people feel jealousy because they experience deep self-doubt, right? And they're constantly anticipating the rejection and the abandonment because their history shows that, you know, they have had a lot of relationships where they were abandoned or were rejected. And so in that case, you're constantly in a state of anticipation of when are you going to leave? Right? When are you going to leave me? What's the point of me going out and dating? All I'm going to do is get rejected. Right. So then if we peel back the layers even deeper, now you're looking at, because I'm not pretty enough or because I'm too big or, guys don't like natural hair or, whatever those negative distortions or negative beliefs and thoughts and beliefs that you may have about yourself will start to pop up, right? So here come those intrusive thoughts, right? Here come the intrusive thoughts that cosigns the rejection and the abandonment. And in actuality, it's almost like you are abandoning and rejecting yourself by believing these negative thoughts and beliefs, right? So the rejection and abandonment of self comes in when you decide not to date, not to get out there and be open to meeting new people, building new relationships, right? Believing that you're not attractive, believing that you're not pretty enough, you're not fine enough, you're too big for anybody to like you, or whatever those negative thoughts are, you start to believe those. So then in actuality, you're abandoning yourself, right? You're abandoning the possibility of happiness, of being loved, of, being wanted and needed by someone else, right? So definitely key into that. Pay attention to that. If you know that you have a history of rejection and abandonment, then of course I would definitely say go, get into therapy, talk with a therapist, work through those, daddy issues or, mommy issues or, just the own personal self rejection and personal abandonment issues, right? There, a good therapist can really help you work through those problems because they definitely will show up in your relationships. It'll show up on the job. Um, like it can even show up in parenting. Okay. So let's talk about other ways that jealousy can be provoked. So jealousy, it can arise from a generalized apprehension that somehow love and happiness always die, right? Some people experience jealousy when they see someone else receiving the interest or kindness they want themselves, right? If we were to really dive into that, right, when you are on the job and somebody else on the job is getting the promotion or they're getting the pat on the back, right? Or, co-workers, tend to go to lunch together and don't ask you, or situations where you may feel like other people are being kind to others, but they're not kind to you. Someone was invited to be the bridesmaid or the matron of honor and you wasn't asked, or there are so many different ways jealousy can show up in life and in relationships, right? But the thing about that is that we really have to work at self security, right? Just kind of being secure within yourself, right? Once again, those assumptions can definitely play mind tricks and you can really start to believe them. Well, they never asked me to go out to lunch because They don't like me. How you know they don't like you? Or is it really that they don't ask you to go out to lunch because around lunchtime you always have your headphones in and you're stuck in your office with the door closed, right? Or at lunch everybody else is getting up to leave and you're still sitting at your desk working. So if this is the habit, then other people do pay attention to your habits. And is your habits, behavior, demeanor, is it saying, don't bother me? you know, don't bother me, right? When I see people walk around, if they got the hoodie on, if they, have the hat on and kind of hiding underneath those things, if they have the phones in their ears, then it's like, don't bother me. I don't want to be bothered. Like that's the sign in that can give, right? So it may not be that they don't want you to come. It's just that maybe your demeanor is not open. It's not inviting. And so you really have to pay attention to that. So some feel jealousy when they see their partner flirting. And jealousy may arise in a new relationship because of painful experiences in past relationships involving a partner's infidelity, right? So if you were, like I said earlier, if you have a history of being in relationships where you've been cheated on, then when you get in a new relationship, that insecurity will pop up, right? When you see your partner talking to somebody of the opposite sex, right? Or if you see your partner talking to someone, and if you're in a same sex relationship and you see your partner talking to another girl or another guy, and, that jealousy can pop up because that immediate fear will come in and introduce negative thoughts and beliefs of possible infidelity, right? It can trigger that past pain that you probably didn't work through, right? Relationship after relationship, infidelity after infidelity, and you've never had the opportunity to really process that pain. You've just been moving on. Like, understand, you are carrying a backpack full of bricks. That's weight. And that's weight that can show up in new relationships and ruin them, right? So you really have to pay attention to your triggers and work through them, so that they can no longer be a trigger. Clearly, the more self confident we are and the more we trust and feel loved by our partners, the less likely we are to experience jealousy in its extreme forms. We can have occasional feelings of jealousy without being a jealous person, right? If we ask, does romantic love inevitably entail some feelings of pain or fear at the prospect of loss, even among self confident individuals? Then the answer is yes. But if we ask, is anxiety, pain, or rage over potential rivals an inevitable part of love for everyone? Then I would answer no, says Nathaniel Brendan. But suppose we do feel insecure and are inclined to jealousy. What can we do to manage such feelings so as not to destroy our relationships? Right? When we're jealous, we often respond by becoming depressed and withdrawn, which leaves our partner feeling uncomfortable and rejected. Another common response is anger, which tends to provoke defensiveness and hostility. Now, listen close, because the question is, what can we do to manage such feelings so as not to destroy our relationship What can we do to manage this feeling of insecurity and jealousy? Right? So let me start over with the answer. Here's the answer. When you're jealous, we often feel, or I'm sorry, respond by becoming depressed, like sad and withdrawn, right? So when we're feeling jealous, immediately we can get upset, we can get sad, we can isolate, and we can get angry, right? And any of those emotions tend to provoke defensiveness and hostility in your mate and within you. Both reactions exacerbate an already difficult situation and make communication almost impossible. So when you're jealous, it's easy to go and point the finger and get upset and angry and start yelling and hollering and screaming and throwing and putting folks' stuff out on the curb, right? But let's be real. Even though you're angry and you're upset and you're mad, it doesn't mean that you really want to end the relationship. So, how do I deal with my anger if I am feeling jealous? If I am feeling jealous about the fact that my boyfriend, best friend is a female, right? If I'm feeling jealous about the fact that my coworker started after me, but she got the promotion before me. If I'm feeling, angry or jealous because my friend has a new friend and it seems like she has a better time with the new friend, right? So what do you do with that? Right? So if you respond with negativity, with anger, if you're, with sadness, with withdrawing, then all that does is exacerbate an already difficult situation, and it really does put a pause on the ability to communicate, to work towards healing. So, we need to learn alternative responses that are more helpful. So, let's look at an example. Let's look at Claire. So, when Claire saw her husband flirting with another woman at a party, she instantly became hostile and bitter. Her husband denied everything, and for several days, they barely spoke. In therapy, she learned to say, when she saw it happening, this is what she said to her husband. Instead of coming at him angry, pissed off, mad, cussing, fussing, throwing, and putting him out, here's what she said. She said, watching you, I felt a little anxious. I felt a little scared. I began having fantasies of you running off and leaving me. In this statement, she took responsibility of her own feelings and did what she could to be she did what she could to create a context in which a benevolent discussion could take place, right? She did not disown her anger, recognizing that it was understandable. It was understandable in the circumstances, right? So she didn't disown her anger. She's telling him what it made her feel like when she was watching him, right? So she did not disown her anger, recognizing that it was understandable in the circumstances, but saw that her interests were not served by making anger the heart of the communication. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm getting tongue tied here. So, like, really key in on that, right? Claire spoke and she explained what it made her feel like to watch him talk to this woman at the party. She did not disown her anger because she was still probably angry, just able to put things in perspective. And she did not allow anger to be the heart of the communication. She allowed her feelings to be the heart of the communication. By doing so, he did not feel attacked. Her husband did not try to defend himself. He listened. He acknowledged that he had been flirting and that he had been unintentionally hurtful. So he was able to own up to the wrong, that he was flirting, even though initially he denied it, right? And he denied it because I'm sure he was trying to prevent the arguing. But for several days, they did not talk, right? So Claire had to get it together, take some time out, process what she saw, process her feelings. And instead of her, now wait, let me stop right here, because I don't always condone silence. But in the silence, as it stated, she confronted him about it. He denied it all. And for several days, they did not or barely spoke. Now, if you need the silence to process your feelings, to prevent an angry, explosive argument, okay, cool. But if you need that silence, I want you to ask to ask for it, right? Or to state that you need that time. So that would go something like, I understand that you're denying it, but I feel like I do need some time just kind of process my feelings. I don't want to get into an aggressive argument with you, but I do need some time to process my feelings. And I would like to come back, in a day or two, and we revisit this conversation. Right? Now, I'm not saying it's going to always go this way. I'm not saying that, but it just all depends on maturity level. But what do you really want to get out of this? Do you want a fight, or do you want to find solutions? Right? So, as it stated, being that she did not, because of course, initially he's going to think that you're going to come with the aggression, with the anger, pissed off, defensive, calling names, all of the extras, right? But the throw off is that she came, said what she needed to say. She let him know that she saw it. She stepped back, processed it, came back, approached it with him. He listened, owned up to the flirting, said that he unintentionally tried, that the hurt was unintentional. The problem was not solved in that instant, but the road was open for a deeper, more meaningful exploration. Right? So now the door is open for them to have a conversation about why is it that he feel the need to flirt? How does the flirting feed him? Right? Is it an ego? Is it feeding his ego? Is he checking to make sure he still got it? You know, you have to look within yourself to say, okay, is there any behaviors within me that could be promoting, this behavior in him? Are there some things in our relationship that is lacking? Do I build him up? Do I, give him compliments? Do I show him how much I love him? Do I support him? What, like this opens the door for deeper communication, right? Because he can come back and say, well, you know what? Sometimes I just like the fact that women still find me attractive, right? Because you really don't give me compliments. You know, I can go get a haircut, I can have on something new. It's like you just overlook everything, right? Like you never tell me, you know, that I look handsome or sexy or baby, I love it when you wear this, or like I never get that from you. And so sometimes I just need that. Sometimes I just need my ego fed a little bit, right? Not trying to be really selfish or anything, but I know that my act has been selfish by flirting back with women. But I am telling you that, you know, this is something that I do like, and I would really enjoy it if you would start doing that again, right? These just scenarios, y'all. These are just scenarios. I know life can go a little bit different, right? But I'm just trying to give you another perspective and another way to handle things, okay? And so we need to recognize our feelings, own them, talk about them honestly, and not allow them to drive us to behavior that sabotages relationships. Now, yes, infidelity can definitely ruin a relationship. Financial infidelity can ruin a relationship. Emotional, verbal, like all of that can ruin a relationship, right? But do you want the relationship to end, or do you just simply want the behavior to end? Right? And that example with Claire is just showing you, if you don't want the relationship to end, then recognize your feelings, own them, talk about them honestly, without the anger, without the defensiveness, without all of the negativity, because at the end of the day, the receiver of your message is not going to hear you. All they're going to do is pay attention to your technique, pay attention to your tone, you know, pay attention to your physical body language, and your message is going to get lost in all the extras, right? So we have to really learn how to communicate. So we don't want to always sabotage the relationships. And now, granted, his behavior can definitely be something that can sabotage a relationship, right? Because I'm not condoning flirting in no form of fashion, but let's keep it real. There's been, you know, people have been through infidelity and not wanting to leave the relationship, right? People are willing to fight for their love, and if you're fighting for your love in such a way with defensiveness, you know, because that's where most couples live, defensive, right? You come at me defensive, I'm going to get defensive back, and then we're going to argue, fuss, fight, and the whole message just gets thrown in the trash can, and relationships end up being sabotaged. So this is equally true when our initial response is to withdraw into that hurt silence, as stated before. That only hope, once again, of a solution lies in authentic, non-accusatory communication and an I'm sorry, y'all. I can't get it out. Um, the only hope of a solution, once again, is it lies in authentic, non accusatory communication and an honest sharing of feelings. So let's look at another example of how jealousy can show up. Um, Lauren complained of feeling jealous because of the attention other women paid to her handsome husband. She instead um, insisted that he must be inviting it by somehow signaling availability. When she was asked what she would like her husband to do differently, she could not answer. She was encouraged to talk about her anxieties with him rather than withdraw into depressed silence. right? So that goes back into that hurt silence. In their conversation, it slowly emerged that he did enjoy being the center of so much feminine attention, and that if he did nothing and that if he did nothing to encourage it, he did nothing to discourage it either. After some resistance, he agreed to be more reserved. She agreed to take responsibility for her fears, monitor them, talk about them, and keep reminding herself that her husband was not the father who had left his family for another woman when Lauren was 12. Twofold to this example. A, it's basically stating that Lauren has some daddy issues, right? Dad left her mother and went with another woman when Lauren was 12. And so that has built that abandonment and rejection piece in her, which is showing up in her relationships, right? But then on the flip side, her husband was flirting, right? He was, well, not that he was flirting. Well, he was getting the attention from the women, but he was enjoying it, but he wasn't doing anything to discourage it either, right? So we all know that that can start something, right? You know, Kim might want to, think that he's cute, and so she's flirting. He doesn't stop the flirting. He doesn't tell her, hey, I'm a married man. I don't, get down in that way. But he also really didn't give in to it by flirting back with Kim, but he didn't do anything to stop it though, right? So I don't want to make it seem like it's all Lauren's daddy issues here. They're both bringing, are responsible in this situation right here, right? The husband didn't shut it down. And then also Lauren has feelings of jealousy because, her husband is handsome. He does get this attention from women. And, she basically was running with the thoughts, but after being encouraged to talk about her feelings and the anxiety, she was able to express how it made her feel, right? So if we were the person doing the flirting and our partner is the jealous one, our first responsibility is to be truthful, right? So if you were flirting, just be honest about it. If we deny our partner's perceptions, we merely deepen their anxiety and confirm their fear that there is something to be jealous about. Right? So own it. If you're flirting, own it. Right? Own your responsibility and be honest. Because if you lie about it, then it denies your partner emotions to be acknowledged, and all it would do is just deepen the anxiety and the fears and the worry and the assumptions and the self-doubt and the decrease in self-worth, self-esteem. I don't think you want to do all that, right? So own it, acknowledge your mate's feelings about it, and then talk about it and discuss it, right? Own your wrong. As I tell all my couples, own your wrong, period. Because in order to heal, everybody got to be open and honest and willing to stand in their truth, whether it's that truth is positive or negative, right? So here's another example. When Mike would call me on my flirting, said Linda, my first impulse was to say it was only his imagination. right? So Linda is not trying to initially own the flirting, right? She got caught. So her first thought was to say it was his imagination. Whoo-wee, come on now. I know a lot of y'all can, um, I can't find my word. I know you guys have been through, I know some people have been through that, right? It's just your imagination. Ain't nobody out here flirting. Like, you tripping, right? So then Linda says, I had to learn not to be controlled by my fear of being reproached. It made me deny what was obviously true. I didn't have a lot of dates when I was young, and sometimes male attention goes to my head. When I admitted that to Mike, he got more relaxed. He said he could understand that. His understanding made me want to handle my feelings better, experience them without being run by them, not act inappropriately or do anything that could give him grounds for discomfort, right? So now she's owning her responsibility, right? Let me go back and reread that because I'm getting a little tongue tied up in here. I want y'all to make sure that you get this. So Linda said, when Mike would call me out on my flirting, my first impulse was to say it was only his imagination. I had to learn not to be controlled by my fear of being called out, basically. It made me deny what was obviously true. I didn't have a lot of dates when I was younger, and sometimes male attention goes to my head, right? So that attention goes and it feeds her ego. When I admitted that to Mike, he got more relaxed, right? So instead, she wasn't like being extra defensive or any of that. Like, she just was being honest with him. Okay, that attention goes to my head a little bit. It feeds my ego, right? So Max was, I'm sorry, Max. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the word. That he was more relaxed. So, he got more relaxed, and he said he could understand that. His understanding made me want to handle my feelings better, experience them without being run by them, not act inappropriately or do anything that could give him grounds for discomfort. Right? So, to kind of wrap things up here, jealousy, justified or not, is painful and humiliating. It needs to be dealt with compassionately, whether in ourselves or our partners. When we have the courage to explore the pain and fear that underlie it, it tends to diminish as self-esteem tends to grow. Okay? So the gist is, if you have jealousy issues, you really got to work with dealing with the root of those issues. You got to find out, what is the root of my jealousy? Is it rejection and abandonment history? Abandonment history? Is it me just not being confident within myself? Right? Really working to look within yourself and really deal with the jealousy, because jealousy really does ruin relationships. It can ruin the emotional connection that you have with your friend, family members, co-workers, romantic interests, right? And at the end of the day, like, Mr. Brendan said, it's painful and it is definitely humiliating. Right? It does not feel good to be jealous in no form or fashion. I always think about us women, right? Now, Here's a takeaway I really want you guys to utilize, whether you are the giver or the receiver. Now, I think I may have talked about this in a past episode, but when you're out and about and another female may give you this look, like just a stank face look, right? And my thing is, I always say give people their responsibility back, right? What was the point of the stank face? Whether you did it, if you are the doer, what's the point? If you see a woman that is looking nice, her hair is pretty, like she just got it all together, right? Like her appearance is all together, right? Instead of giving her the stank face because you jealous, you got to look and see what is it about her that is making you feel jealous. Instead of you being jealous, you should really work to be inspired. Is it her outfit? Does she put her clothes together well? Do you wish that you could dress that way? If so, be inspired by it. Take her outfit, pull out your phone, go in your notes, write it down, right? And go and look for pieces similar to that, and you can recreate or create that look for yourself. Like, don't hate on her because she looking cute, right? Compliment her. Don't give it a stank face because her hair is pretty or her makeup is pretty or because, she's with her boyfriend or her husband and they make such a beautiful couple. Like, don't be jealous about that. Be inspired. Right? Like, we got to start lifting each other up and stop tearing each other down. So be inspired. Figure out what is it within you. What is it about this other person that wakes up this jealousy in you? Right? I'm not talking about infidelity here. I'm talking about just when you look and see another person and you start to feel jealous, right? If somebody is, if somebody got some accolades on the job or, like, instead look and see, okay, well, look at their work ethic. Look at their consistency, their dedication, the systems they have into play that has caused them to be able to get this acknowledgement, right? And implement. Okay? So let's really work at building each other up, but also working to build yourself up. As we talk about, self-esteem and living authentically, like, you got to be honest with yourself, right? As we are working to be authentic, non-accusatory, and honest with our feelings with others, we also have to be that same way with ourselves. Okay? So I really, really hope that this episode helps you guys deal with any feelings you may have had as it relates to jealousy. And I hope that you do understand the connection between jealousy and self-esteem. Right? If you do have this issue, be honest with yourself. Take a good look within and let's work on it. Let's work on it so that you won't ruin any more relationships. Let's go to therapy and talk about the abandonment and rejection issues from, missing, your father not being there or your mother not being there, right? Let's deal with the low self-esteem and, learn the tools that you can utilize in order to build your self-esteem, in order to build that self-worth so that you can be able to feel more confident in your interactions and relationships. Okay? So please go back and listen to this episode again. Please, I do apologize. I know that there's like a little noise there in the background of portions of the episode. Once again, I broke my cord, the original cord that came with my microphone. I bought a replacement, and this replacement is not the best, as you can hear. But roll with me, until I can find a better solution. All right. So I hope that that little noise don't deter you from going back and listening to this episode to make sure that you got all the nuggets. But I will work on the quality with this microphone. Is anywho, I'll work with it, but the show must go on, right? So until our next conversation, let's really work to live authentically, and let's really work at decreasing and getting rid of any jealousy, right? We're all connected in some form of fashion. So let's really work to build each other up. Let's really work to communicate our needs, our feelings, so that we can really work to get the life that we want and have the relationships that we want. All right. So until next time, have a great one. Bye bye.